How you guys doing? Let's try that again. How are you doing? All right, having fun? Okay, excellent. Well, welcome to the session. My boss told me to build a lightning component. Now what? How many of you have ever had that happen? All right. Okay, so my name is Greg Rose. I'm the Director of Product Management for Lightning Components. So if you are enjoying Lightning Components, you're welcome. If you don't like Lightning Components, I have no control over my engineering team. They're just crazy. All right. How many of you have seen more than one session at Dreamforce already? Okay, then you can predict what my next slide is going to be, right? Are you ready? All right, that one. Okay, again, forward-looking statement. As a product manager, I am very often just accidentally spew out forward-looking statements, all right? So if I do, bear in mind that's a forward-looking statement. Do not make purchasing decisions based upon that. All right, let's talk about Lightning and the move to Lightning, because it is a fundamental change. And it not only changes the way that that we work with Salesforce, but it changed the fundamental underlying underpinnings of Salesforce. Classic is a server-side technology. Everything was built on the server. That page is then sent down to the client already built. And it is really an entire page, because that's what we think about when we think about Classic. Even any customization that we do as a developer, we think in terms of a page, in terms of the visual force page, right? But there's a fundamental shift with Lightning, because it's all client side. All right? The Lightning framework runs on the client, in the browser on the client. What is sent down from the server are the pieces of the page. And then the framework builds those back together. It's sort of like going to IKEA, right? You get home with that box, you pull it out, and you go, how do I make sense of all this? Well, thankfully, the framework knows how to make sense of all of that. You see, because, well, actually, let me ask you, what do you see? This is the interactive portion of the demonstration. I ask a question, you yell out an answer. What do you see? I see a Lightning page. I see a record page. If that's your answer, you're wrong. Because what you should have said is, I see components. Because really, a Lightning page is nothing more than just a ton of components. You see, because inside of Lightning, everything is a component. Literally everything is a component. Pop quiz. Now, I know you didn't study, but I hope you can get this. What is the largest component that you've ever seen? The Lightning page, exactly right. I wish I had something to give you, sir. I'll give you a high five. No. All right. It's a Lightning page. Even the page itself is a Lightning component. And we as developers can even build our own page templates. And you know how we do it? The exact same way that we build small components. It is nothing more than a component. All right. So what is a component? Well, a component is not even real. A component is not a thing, because a component is actually made up of many other things. Up to 8 of them. It is up to 8 files. Now, you don't have to use all 8 of them. There's only one that's mandatory. The component file. That is absolutely mandatory, because that, of course, is your component. And what is that? Well, that's your HTML. Your markup, if you will, what the person is going to see displayed on screen. That's in your component file. Now, there's something else that's going to go in there too, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. Then you have a controller file. The controller is a JavaScript file. Okay? We also have a second JavaScript file called the helper. And that's where we put commonly used functions that we write. And then finally, we come to the style component, or style file, which is CSS. Now, I will be perfectly honest with you. When I started building Lightning components 3 years ago, I was doing a lot of writing CSS on my own. Today, I almost never add CSS to my components because of SLDS, the Salesforce Lightning Design System, and base components, the components that my team builds. We already do all of that for you. Hey, documentation, what's that? No, seriously, I'm a developer. What's documentation? I don't read it, and I definitely don't write it. But you should. You see, because that documentation is going to show up inside of the component. Where inside of the component? Well, when the component is displayed in something called the component library that we will talk about. Then finally, we have a renderer, which quite honestly, in 3 years of developing Lightning components, I've used exactly once. I copied and pasted the code. I have no earthly idea what it actually did. And you shouldn't worry about it either because we're deprecating that thing. Nobody uses it. Nobody needs it. All right? And then finally, we come to arguably for me, the single most important file in the bundle, the design file, because the design file allows me as a developer to expose parameters to App Builder. So when my admins are assembling their page using my components, they can actually specify parameters, make things happen within my component without me having to get involved. If you're interested in knowing about that, I have a session tomorrow afternoon and repeat it again on Friday morning, all about design parameters. Okay, and then finally, the least important file in the bundle, the icon that appears in App Builder. All right, so those are the ones that we have. But let's actually get real. How do I build a component? Well, this was actually the first component that I ever built 3 years ago. And when I built it back then, I did everything by hand. I did all of the HTML markup. I did all the CSS because back then we didn't have any help to give you. So that thing took about 152 lines of code to get finished. Now, I've since gone back and rebuilt it using something called base Lightning components. And using my base Lightning components, I went from 152 lines of code down to just over 30. Okay? Because what is a base component? It is nothing more than a declarative tag. Starts with Lightning, colon, and then something. And the magic of this is, just like in Visualforce, when you say Apex page block table and you get a table, you don't have to think about it, right? That's the same way that these base components work. You just simply call out their name, pass an attribute or two to them, and we will figure out all the rest. We'll figure out the markup. We'll figure out the CSS, right? So we're doing all of that for you. And finally, those base components, you can find them in a place called the component library. Now, how many have seen the component library before? Only a few hands, all right? That's probably obvious because it's been out for over a year. Wait, what? It's been out for over a year and only a few people have seen it. That's because in the last 2 releases, we hid it really, really, really well. But now we've actually moved it onto developer.salesforce.com. So in fact, let's actually start there. Let's actually go and take a look at that component library. Again, that component library is over here. If you go to developer.salesforce.com, you're going to find it right up here under the resources. It's right there, the Lightning component library. And what that's going to show you, if the Wi-Fi is working, there we go. What that is going to show you is all of those base components that you can use as building blocks for your own components. But before we go there, let's actually head back into our org. And our boss has just left the room. She came in and said, hey, we need you to build a Lightning component. And the reason we need it is because folks are not happy having to go and mouse over the broker information down here to get the phone number for the broker for this property. So what we'd like you to do is to build a component and maybe sit it over there in the right-hand column, right, to display that information at a glance. Make sense? You ready to do it? We've only got 10 minutes left. Oh, no. All right, and you got a lot to learn. So let's go. Here we go. We're going to start off by going up here to my developer console. And in my developer console, I'm just going to open up it up as another tab. And this is where I'm going to start my development. Now I'm going to go to my file menu. I'm going to say File, New, and I'm going to say File, New, Lightning Component. So there it is, File, New, Lightning Component. Now when I say New Lightning Component, the first thing that I have to do is to give it a name. So being that this is the first thing that you've ever learned, any developers here? What was the first project you ever did learning a new language? Hello World. Let's call our component Hello World. All right, Hello World. All right, then we need to say, where is this going to be placed? Is it going to be in a Lightning tab, a Lightning page, a Lightning record page, in the communities, or used as a quick action? I'm going to say we're on a record page, so I'm going to ask for it to be put there. Then I'm going to submit. All right. Now, we have 2 lines of code here. Let me make them a little bit bigger so you can see. 2 lines of code, just an opening and closing tag, an Aura component. Wait a second, I thought we were building a Lightning component. What is Aura? Aura is actually the original name of the Lightning framework, right? So when I say Aura, you think Lightning. When you say Lightning, I think Aura. Okay, same thing, interchangeable. So it says we've got a lightning component going. All right, great. Let's go ahead and put something in there. Let's make it say hello world just for fun. All right, we'll go ahead and save that. Now, how do you preview this? If you've ever done any development in the developer console in Visualforce, you always had a preview button over here, but we don't have that anymore. So how do we preview it? Well, to preview it, we have to go and put it on a page. So let's head back over here to our page, back to our setup. We'll go to our developer console. Oh, sorry, not our developer console. We're just there. We'll go to Edit Page, and that Edit Page is going to take us into App Builder, where we, of course, see all of our standard components that we can drag and drop, but here we also have our custom components where my hello world is one of those. So let's just drag and drop that and put it over there in the right-hand column. We'll go ahead and save the page, and we'll head on back over to it. And now we can see it says hello world. It's sort of hard to see, and there's not a lot of decoration going on or anything, so let's make this look a little bit nicer. All right, the way we're going to do that is we're going to head over to that component library, because I happen to know that all these things that I'm seeing here, this guy, this guy, this guy, these are all what we call a card. All right, and so that you don't have to build all of that HTML yourself, we'll go over to our component library. We'll just type in card. Oops. Card, that is, if I could spell. There we go. And we'll go straight to our lightning card. Now, in the component library, you have a number of different options for each component. So this is a basic card. Here's a narrow card. We're showing you the preview here. Here's a custom card. And as you're making these changes, what you're actually seeing is down below, the code is actually updating for you. All right, so I'm just going to actually grab this code right here for the lightning card, because I've already got my Aura component definition, and I'm just going to go back over here. I'll make a new line, and I'm going to paste that in there. And then I'm going to move my hello world, and I'm just going to replace the card body right there. There we go. Let's save that. Let's go look at it on our page and see what it actually looks like. Now, that's what it actually looks like now. It's got a title that says hello. Our content is saying hello world. There's a new button over here. There's a footer as well. I don't actually need some of that stuff, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that. I don't need the new button up there, and I don't need that footer, so I'll take that out. But what I would like is that on all the other cards, they had a nice little icon, so I'd like to get an icon. So I'm going to go back over here, and I'm just going to type icon name. And that's in the documentation in the component library for this. Now, where can I find icons? Well, actually, the Lightning Design System has a ton of icons. So I'm just going to go over here to icons, and then look down through every icon that's available in Salesforce. Maybe I find one that I like. Let's say, for example, this announcement. All right, now this is part of my standard icon, so I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to say, all right, standard is the category of icons, and announcement is the one that I want. If I save that, look at it again, you'll see that now we've removed our button, we've got our nice icon there, and we've got the footer gone as well. So it's just saying hello world. Now, wouldn't it be nicer if that thing would actually do something? Like maybe, have dynamics so it doesn't just always say hello world? Well, in order to do that, we need to talk about something called an Aura attribute. An Aura attribute is where we store data in a component. So I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it greeting. I'm going to tell it this is going to be of type string. You can have all sorts of numbers, string, objects, and so on. And I'm even going to give it a default. And that default is going to be world. All right, so that means I no longer need this here, because what I would like it to do is to pick that value up from that attribute. And the way we do that is just like in Visualforce. We say curly bracket, bang, and curly bracket, and then we give it a variable name, the thing that we want it to figure out. But the problem in the Lightning world is we have 8 files. 8 files means that we now have to know where that variable is declared. Right? So we do that by saying v dot. V stands for the view or the markup here, and I'm going to say v dot greeting. So in other words, this is saying go here in my file somewhere, you are going to find an attribute named greeting and pick up that value, right? So if I save this, we go back over, I refresh my page, we don't see any difference. And yet you know that world is no longer a real word, okay? Are we having fun yet? You don't sound like it. So let's see if this gets you excited. Let's go back over to the developer console. Now, I'm going to add in another something here. Now, I am a bit of a fast typist, so there you go. I just added in a couple of lines of code. And what I added was a Lightning input, more of these base components. So this is just an input field. I want to be able to type in, and a button, right? So again, if you want to see that, we now have that field, and we have an update button. Of course, what I'd really like is to say, hello, Dreamforce, be able to click this button and have it change that value, right? That would be really cool. But it doesn't work right now because we have to understand that to do anything, to make any functions happen, if you will, in your component, we have to call JavaScript. And the way we do that is we say that our button has an on-click handler, and it is going to go into the controller file and fire this function called handle click. So let's go create that right now. We'll go to our controller file, and again, I'll just do a little bit of quick typing here. There we go. And now I've got a function called handle click. Now this is going to say, it is a function, it is a JavaScript function. It takes 3 parameters, component, event, and helper. And we're going to say what we would like to do is to declare a variable called val, and then we want to go into the component, and we want to find my input. That's the ID that I gave to that input. Find it, and then get the value that is in there. And then I want you to go and set the value for greeting to whatever that person typed in there. Okay? Save this. We'll go back over, make sure that is saved. Yes, that is saved. So if we now go over here and we refresh, again, now we can see we have our hello world, we have our input, but now when I say Dreamforce and I hit that update button, it now magically updated. Cool? No, that's not cool. What would be cool is if I didn't even have to hit the button. That would be really cool. And in fact, I can do that simply by going back over here, and in my field, I can just say value equals, curly bracket, bang, v.greeting, curly bracket, save this, and now, as we go back over here, refreshing our page one more time, now you see that world is already populated there because it picked it up from that attribute and populated it here. But now watch what happens. Are you ready to explode with applause? Is that cool? Thank you for that applause, but that is a stupid component. Let's make it do something fun, all right? All right, we're going to go back over here into our component. I'm going to remove it all and replace it with a little bit more code. All right, what have I just done? Well, let's go take a look at this before we break this code down. All right, I'm going to refresh my component, and now, oh, look at this. It suddenly got some data from somewhere, and all I did was change some markup. What? All right, let's figure out what I did. So what I did is I have a couple more attributes, of course. Now, these attributes are special. This first one is the record ID. Now, what that is the ID of the page that I am on. Okay? So I am storing that record ID, and then I'm using something called Lightning Data Service. Lightning Data Service, behind the scenes, takes a record ID, and then based upon what you tell it, either layout full, layout compact, or a list of field names, it goes and gets those fields and brings them back, and it stores them in whatever we define as the target fields. So in this case, that is my property attribute. So it's going to go back, it's going to get all of the information about the property I'm on. One of those fields is the broker ID. So now I'm going to do something super special, my friends. In the winter release last year, we gave you something called a base component called record view form. In the spring release, we gave you record edit form. And then I thought to myself, what would happen if view form and edit form had a child? What would you name it? So I decided to name it record form. And record form is really intelligent, you see, because it takes a record ID as well. And what is the record ID? Well, I said go back into the property attribute and find the broker field and pick up its ID. And then what I would like you to do is go find out what fields are in its compact layout and bring those back, right? Now, what else could I do? Well, I could do full, for example. Let's see if we did that. We'll refresh our component again, and boom, now I have all the fields from the broker record. Now, what's cool about this is, by the way, I'm going to edit this. We'll just say his name has a Z on it, and I'm going to save it. And I just updated. My friends, you didn't even catch that, did you? I just updated the broker record, but I'm on a property page. What? And how did I do it? How I did it was literally just this one line of code. Now, if you want, you can do some more. We can have some more fun. We can go, let's say we only want one column. And instead of a whole layout, I'm just going to say fields equals curly bracket, bang, bang, V dot, and I think I call it broker fields right here. So copy that, V dot broker fields, and curly bracket, and double quotes. All right, so now I've said, I want you to go to those broker fields, and that means you're only going to get the name, the email, the mobile phone, or whatever else I've defined, and display it in one column. Are we ready? Let's see if my live coding has worked one more time. And there we go. We just built a form. How was that for your first component? Literally a few lines of code. By the way, did you notice that that component no longer needs JavaScript? Oh, and how do you normally talk to the server? Apex. But I didn't have to write any Apex either. You see, that's the promise of base components and building on the Lightning platform with Lightning components. And with that, sadly, my time is up. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've got questions, I'm headed over to the Lightning Components booth, so you'll find me there the rest of the afternoon if you'd like to talk more or get any specific questions answered. Thank you so much.